All right, I think we are live. So welcome everyone to another Matt Maran Motoring live stream here on the Matt Maran Motoring YouTube channel. Hope you're all having a great weekend. Thanks so much for stopping by. So like all the other usual live streams, we're going to go for about 2 hours or so. I'll give priority answering to anyone who does a super chat or a super thanks. So as anyone who's a member there with the green usernames, you can join as well if you'd like. There's a link in the description there to get that priority answering as well. And I see we have Theodore, Kevin, Lancelot, Nicholas and Danny and Chad and Luke and Raphael and Michelle and Mr. 705. Thanks for stopping by, everyone. And I see Theodore has the first comment here. He says, we saw a sky blue Bronco with a plow in the front. Nice. That's a fun spot. I don't think I've ever actually seen a Bronco with a plow. So that's cool that those are out there. And that's why says good evening and hope everyone had an amazing week. Sadly, I didn't get to see any cool cars for the second half of the week. Yeah, I think I saw a few, but nothing that I recall, nothing that stands out a ton. And I did go to a junkyard here on Friday, or was it Thursday actually, and saw some interesting stuff there. So I won't spoil the video. Hopefully the new junkyard video will be up either tomorrow or Tuesday. We'll see. It'll be late tomorrow if it's tomorrow, but either tomorrow or Tuesday. So stay tuned for that because, man, the junkyards, I thought for sure like they'd start to disappoint after a while. Maybe they will eventually, but every single time I still always manage to see some crazy stuff. And so, yeah, you'll see all my fun spots here in a day or two. But also, Lancelot, thank you so much for gifting 5 memberships. I really appreciate the generosity there and happy to see a bunch of new people able to get those for the most part there. I think there's 1 or 2 familiar faces as well there, but thanks so much. I really appreciate the support, Lancelot. I'm sure all those who got the memberships do as well. And I see Danny says hello. He missed the past 2 lives. Life at home's a total mess. I'm sorry to hear that. Yeah, I missed last Sunday anyway because I was pretty sick and was able to do Wednesday, and I'm still like not 100%. It's crazy. This cold's been dragging on it's been like a week and a half or so now, but I'm mostly back to normal. But yeah, I had some crazy times here this week as well, so I can relate to the messy life, and that's just the way life goes sometimes, especially around the holidays. I think it's kind of chaotic for a lot of people. But anyway, he says, this week I drove Thursday to today. My rear spot was a 1994 Toyota Paseo in black, or maybe it's Paseo. I never learned how to say that properly. I don't know what the right pronunciation is. But anyway, that's a nice one. Those are very rare, so that's cool. And thanks for stopping by, Chad. And Danny also says, I also got to be in my town's holiday parade due to me being in the high school marching band. I put a lot of smiles on kids around your daughter's age, ironically. Yeah, I mean, yeah, my daughter, 4.5, she loves marching bands. So what you guys do is absolutely making a lot of little kids happy. And I'm sure a lot of adults too, like my mother-in-law loves marching bands. It's like one of her favorite things too. So yeah, it's always great. And thank you for what you do there, Danny. And let me see. Also, Jordan, thanks so much for being a member for 26 months now. He says, car companies shape our mental desires. If Ford created an intriguing four-door sedan now, do you think it could shift the SUV and truck dynamics? I think they're going to try. There was, this podcast or whatever recently where they're talking to Jim Farley of Ford, and he, was saying that they are the same platform that's underpinning this new electric small truck that they're working on, that will also underpin a small sports sedan that's rear-wheel drive. So I think they're going to try that. We'll see if that actually does come to fruition, especially with, all the changing legislation and, just the uncertainty of, exactly where the EV market will land. I mean, I think I'm fairly confident I know where it's going to head and what's, going to play out, but a lot of these car companies are still like very uncertain. At least publicly, they're not really sure what's going to happen, and they're all very treading lightly, I guess is the way to put it. So I don't know. I mean, Ford did shift a bunch of their plans around, so maybe that stuff won't actually end up coming to production. We'll see. But yeah, I mean, I think that Jim Farley wants that. He said earlier this year, like, buyers need to fall out of love with big trucks. And then they, make the most popular big truck. So it's like you're kind of feeding into your own problem there, I guess. But, It sounds like, they would like to get back to cars. And I also saw a little blurb this week about how the reason why Fusion had to go away, for example, was that they didn't have the resources. Even though Ford is gigantic, supposedly they didn't have the resources to continue doing Fusion and do Bronco Sports and Maverick. So it was like Fusion died, so those two could come out. Which I don't know why. That seems like a false choice. Like, why can't it be both? Um, Again, it's Ford. We're not talking about Mitsubishi North America or something like. We're talking about a giant operation that should have no problem doing all that stuff, especially when, again, Fusion was still selling 100,000 units a year on an old car doing nothing to it. So I don't know. I still don't buy that. But regardless, that's what they've said is the justification for that stuff. So they got themselves into this pickle on their own. I mean, clearly Maverick and Bronco Sports sell very well, so I don't think they have any regrets about it. But again, I just don't know why they couldn't have done all three. So I mean, we'll see. But now they got their work cut out for them. Is the point I'm making here is now they have to start from scratch, and I think that they'll get themselves a nice head start if they do the 4-door actual Mustang, like just take the current Mustang and stretch it with a V8 and a manual. I think they're gonna build a lot of goodwill there. A lot of people will be excited to see a regular sedan come out like that, and then if this little electric thing comes out that's actually fun, that'll come down to how open-minded people are. I'm guessing as long as they don't put a stupid name on it, people might be okay with it. In a couple of years, we're going to definitely see the EV market probably crater this coming year because everyone who was going to buy in 2026 pulled their purchase ahead, to get the tax credit. So as a result, we have a demand vacuum that has formed, and this is very predictable. Germany did the same thing when they got rid of their incentives in 2023, I believe it was. 2024 was a really crappy year for their EV sales, and then 2025 here it came roaring back. I think we'll see the same thing. 2026, complete write-off year for EVs, most likely. By 2027, I think we'll see the true interest kind of rebound, and we'll see, where we fare and where we land, after all the dust is settled, and then people are just coming out of the sidelines, buying regularly and saying, okay, these are the prices. We either like them or we don't. And companies kind of figuring out where they all fit in and all that. So we'll see how it all plays out. But I think that, and as far as, car companies shaping what we want, I think there's a very finite limit to how much they can actually influence. Car companies would love for us to love all kinds of stuff that people just don't go for. I mean, look at every failed car. The car wasn't put out because they thought it was going to be a failure. It was put out because they're like, this should do well. We want people to, buy these because we're trying to sell them. And we think that this has a good chance of success. And then, we've had plenty of failures and cars that just didn't, get any kind of public appreciation. And so I think that's showing those limits of car companies being like, hey, we can send all the fun marketing we want behind this. We can portray this as the coolest thing ever, but sometimes people just don't buy it, both mentally and physically with, their dollars. So, I don't think they have quite as much sway as maybe some people would like to think they do. I think it ultimately is going to come down to, what BS people see through and what is legitimately cool and desirable. And sometimes, those things you can't make up with marketing. If the car is just not what people want, then it's not what people want, So anyway, but great question, Jordan, and thanks so much for being a member for all these months now as well. And let me see here. So Luke says, so for the porch becoming 2 rooms on my house, the beam was attached to nothing, and my contractor has to pour concrete and new footers. Never stops. Oh, I hate that when, you uncover one thing and then it just turns into this snowball effect. And then before you know it, you got, a gigantic headache on your hands. That's it's no fun. So sorry to hear that, Luke. And hopefully it doesn't get too expensive. Fingers crossed for you. Let me see. Vishal says the GRGT seems pretty cool, though the Lexus version should have been called the LFE instead of the LFA, in my opinion. Yeah, LFE could be kind of cool. I understand. Yeah, the thinking there. I mean, I'm surprised they use LFA as well. I really thought, LFA was kind of something that would be bad to try to repeat as far as like a name goes. Just the same way, like they're not calling the GRGT the 2000 GT. Like they could have done that because that's like the sacred holy car for Toyota. At least internally, that's like the ultimate. Everything is always referencing, paying homage to the 2000 GT and all that. So like that one seems to be off limits because we've never seen a resurrection of that, even with all these cool things like the GRGT. That could have been called that, or if they have to do the GR thing, then GR 2000 GT. So it's kind of interesting that they decided that LFA was not in that like off limits territory, and then yeah, we can bring this back. And I also don't know, I think we still need to wait and see what their plans are for LFA for the new one, as far as, like maybe they needed to use the name because they're going to make the new car sound exactly like the old one, possibly. Because you can do that digitally if it's, EV, and, if everyone's like, oh, well, it's electric now or whatever, like, yeah, but if it's an EV that literally is just playing you a recording of an LFA, can you really be that mad? Like, sure, it's not real LFA. I mean, it's technically it is real LFA sounds. Yes, it's not being actively produced locally by the thing under the hood, but you're hearing an LFA soundtrack in a sweet looking car that's really fast, probably. I mean, I don't know. We'll see. But it sounds like they're kind of on board with, because I mean, I caught a little bit of the actual live press conference, which didn't really say a whole lot, but they're saying how they're focusing on sound and that component, not only for the gas one, but also for the EV one. And I think the consensus that I've been getting is basically everyone has driven the Hyundai Ioniq 5N and was like, oh, damn, they nailed it. And we're going to do that too. I mean, even like Porsche, I don't know if you guys saw, I think it was just this past week, there was a news report that a couple of the Porsche like GT people who do like GT3 and stuff, like they like didn't take it seriously at first. And then like they took one of the other engineers for a ride and said, just try this. And they try it and they're like, oh man, this is actually awesome. And I know Lamborghini was benchmarking with their new EV that they're working on. Lamborghini had an Ioniq 5N on Lamborghini plates running around Italy, and there was Lamborghini engineers driving an Ioniq 5N. So I think everyone, I mean, I think everyone in the car world recognized the greatness of Ioniq 5N. And I think now the car companies are finally realizing, like, okay, this is critically acclaimed. People seem to really like it, and we actually really like it. This is the way. And I absolutely think it is the right way too. So I'm really happy that everyone's kind of latched onto this. But I think that we're going to see the LFA kind of follow along that same path too. And so I'm excited for it. I know so many people were pissed about the LFA not being gas, especially with like the GT3 car being right there. It kind of does pour salt into the wound for sure, because it's like you got the car right there. Like all they had to do was transplant it in, and maybe they will someday do a gas LFA as well, for this new generation, and have it alongside the EV, because clearly, again, this platform seems to be able to accommodate battery packs and, the gas stuff. So, I wouldn't rule that out completely, but yeah, it's interesting the way they played it. And also, after Maurizio's MAGA cosplay a couple of weeks ago, it's reassuring. I mean, he's not in charge anymore. Technically, Koji Sato is. He's the CEO. But it was reassuring because I didn't expect them to do anything electric from the GR side at this point. And so the fact that that's a thing, I'm like, oh, okay, like they actually are still committed to EVs enough to literally put an LFA badge on an EV, which is, quite a commitment, I'd say. They understand the gravity of that. And, so I was pleasantly surprised. They kind of redeemed themselves for Maurizio's stunt by making that EV in my mind, which I know probably very unpopular opinion. Have at it in the comments, but but yeah, that was cool to see personally, and I'm excited to hear more about it. But and I'm glad you guys really enjoyed the video too. I know that kind of was a little reminiscent of like a weekly update kind of thing, and I'm just, it was one of those other like just rare lucky things where like they revealed it at 9 o'clock at night. None of my main competing channels was invited to the launch or the reveal because it was in Japan, I think. And no one covered it basically. So it was, again, whenever there's no competition, like I have no problem getting views. But so that was great. But I'm so glad many of you really enjoyed that. And I do plan to do more of those news updates whenever it's something important and notable like that. If there's a refresh for, whatever, the Subaru Forester, I'm not covering that. But like if it's, something like a gigantic undertaking we've been waiting years to see the reveal of, like, or anything that's exciting for enthusiasts, or something I'm just excited about and I want to blab about, like, that's kind of stuff I'll be covering, to hopefully, again, not leave all the people that love weekly updates. I don't want to leave you guys high and dry, like, because I do miss doing the coverage as well. And I think that, that was always something I think people had said for a long time. And I've kind of, I saw for a while too, of like, the real way to profitability, if you want to do car news, is you got to do every car as a separate video, like a dedicated thing, and space them out and do them, once every day or two, instead of, like I try to clip the weekly updates into, 10 different videos of each little thing. But when you dump them all at the same time on top of the weekly update, like no one watched those. But I think, spacing it out the way Kirk does, the way, some of these other, automotive news channels do, I think that's kind of the way to be smart about it. So, kind of a way to somewhat bring the weekly updates, not back, but do car news coverage on just the notable stuff. And hopefully you guys, enjoy that. But I'm glad that, between that and then my little rant about the K cars, yeah, I've had some nice hits with that and the Prelude and stuff over the past few weeks. It's helping me to restore my confidence that, hey, maybe I still can get views and actually maybe dig myself out of this hole here and get the channel back to some better times. We'll see what happens. But anyway, long tangent, I apologize. And let me see here. So YH, thank you so much for the first super chat of the night. He says, rented a Durango RT. I'm impressed with the tranny, very smooth shifts and linear power delivery. Good amount of power. Infotainment was really bad, glitched a lot. Had to restart it many times. 8 out of 10. Interesting. Because that's Uconnect 5, and I mean that's been around for quite a while. Especially Durango was actually, I think, the first. Either that or Pacifica was the first to launch Uconnect 5. So it's been a while. I'm surprised you have issues with that one. Maybe it just, the rental one didn't have the update it needed or something. I don't know. Even like my Fiat 500e, the infotainment's been flawless in that little thing. I mean, not like I drive it a ton, but it's got 1,200 miles on it that I've managed to do, at least at this point. I mean, so far it's been really flawless, actually. It's kind of funny. You guys will see. I'm going to do a video on the Cadillac and update on our Lyric lease. But there's more complaints and issues we have with that than the Fiat, which the Fiat, I honestly was half expecting me to have at least minor annoyances with the Fiat. And like that thing's been flawless, but I got some stuff to talk about with the Cadillac, and you guys will see that possibly this week, depending on, I got to see how other things shake out. I have another interesting, slightly controversial video I'll be probably posting early this week as well. So stay tuned for that. So depending on how things fit in, we'll see. But I think these topical things that get people talking and, possibly being a little bit, not divisive, but just people wanting to weigh in with their opinion, I think I'm starting to get the hang of doing those types of things. And I think that is, the way to views. So I'll be doing more of that. But anyway, tangent again, sorry. But Durango, yeah, is great. I'm glad you enjoyed it. I'm glad you opened yourself up to something that wasn't a Mustang etch, and hope you get another experience, maybe to try another one that doesn't have a bad infotainment system, because they shouldn't be that bad. But yeah, the ZF8 speed and all those Mopar products is fantastic. Yeah, the power is so great in those, and I'm glad you enjoyed it. And thank you so much for the generous super chat as well. Hope you're doing well. And let me see. All right. I'm going to try and stay on topic here. So let me see. Vishal says he's been having a hard time keeping up with spots. I keep saying I got to write them down, but I never do. Yeah, that's the same with me. I'm right there with you. I should really start writing them down. It's kind of hard though, because usually it's when I'm driving and I don't want to pull out my phone and start writing stuff down. But like after every drive, I'd be like, okay, I saw this, this, and this. So I have stuff to actually talk about here. You see, Fazlin says, hi, Matt. I sadly didn't have any spots this week, but I did have some decent relaxing driving. That's great. And Luke says, my contractor's Brothers 2009 Silverado 2500 bed has rot in it, and a bag of concrete got cut and started falling through. We were all laughing as he drove off. Man, that's crazy that it's rotting through the bed. I guess, did he not have a bed liner or something? That's wild. That's pretty funny. Hopefully the concrete is not solidified, right? So it's not causing issues. I was driving on the road today, and man, I had a crazy rock got kicked up, and thankfully didn't seem like it actually did any serious damage to the windshield, but just a tiny little spot there. I don't even think it's a chip, but I think it's only on a press car, which is not as big of a deal. But man, yeah, and I had another crazy rock chip recently. It's just one of those things that happens, especially here once the salt starts flying. But man, it really chews up cars. And Raphael says no spots this week for him either. I happily didn't have to leave the house at all this past week. That's awesome. Yeah, there's every once in a while I get those kinds of days too, where I'll go like 3 or 4 days where I don't actually need to leave the house, and it's like bad for putting miles on press cars, but I don't hate it otherwise, because it's kind of nice to just stay put and not have to deal with the outside world sometimes. And Mr. 705 says it's funny I didn't know what to do with myself last Sunday night. Well, I'm glad that this has become a fun kind of ritual for a lot of us. And sorry I wasn't able to hang on Sunday night, but hopefully maybe some of you are able to catch the Wednesday one that I linked there instead and stuff. But thanks so much for making time on Sunday nights to hang. I really appreciate it. And let me see. So Danny says I got it the second time. Sorry, I'm missing what that was in regards to there. But so anyway, let me see here. Where were we? Loading more comments here. So Tastebud says, Matt, your channel was on my top 3 in my YouTube wrap for 2025. Thanks for all the hours of entertainment and education. Well, thank you for having me be on your top 5 there. That's a couple other people mentioned that. I think Zach commented on Wednesday that I was in his as well, and it's always humbling to hear that you guys like the channel enough that it's one of the top channels you watch. That's I really appreciate that, and I know you guys got a lot of choices. You got a lot of options out there. It's a lot of great content, and so to have little old me in your top 5 makes me feel really great. So thank you. I'm so glad you enjoyed the videos this year, and hopefully again we keep getting better and better with them as time goes on. And Lancelot's asking if we want to bait me into saying the word tonight. I guess we'll see if the topic comes up there. And Kraken says, Matt, great day today. Lando Norris got the 2025 World Driver Championship in Formula One. Never been happier to be a Lando supporter. That's awesome. I'm so out of the loop on all that stuff, but congrats to all the Lando fans out there. And I couldn't tell you anything about him or who he drives for. Any of that. I'm the worst car enthusiast because I don't have time to follow motorsports at all. But anyway, I'm glad you had a great day. That's awesome. And Jordan says, bring Fusion back as a successful hybrid. Yeah, I think, following the same playbook as Camry could certainly be successful. And again, they already have, the Fusion still going over in China with, a new generation. They could easily bring that here, if they can source some production capacity, which I think they have clearly a bunch of production capacity, because Mustang isn't selling super well still. And that's all that the Flat Rock plant builds now, since they don't do a Continental anymore. So yeah, I don't know. It'd be fun to see. I don't know why they haven't done more at that factory. It's kind of strange. But anyway, Kraken says, and I have yet to watch the Prelude and K-Car videos. I still think you need to turn Matt Marantz into something. Yeah, I mean, I made a playlist of the Prelude video and the K-Car one, and I plan to do more. But I also don't want to force it. And so that means there's never going to be a schedule to them. There's never going to be any regularity. But absolutely, when there's something that gets me worked up, I'm going to rant about it, because I know that you guys enjoy it, and the people who don't enjoy it, they comment and they, let me have it. And that's good for the video as well, with engagement. If there are, lots of comments and discussion and all that, then, even though it's a pain to read through some of the hater comments, hey, if it pays the bills, I'll rant, as long as people want to hear it. So, but it's just, I'm completely at the mercy of, the automotive news topics, or observations that I have or whatever that, piss me off enough to do a rant. So I don't know how often that's going to be. Obviously, for my blood pressure's sake, hopefully not that often, but for the channel's sake, I guess it should be as often as possible. But yeah, we'll see how that develops. But absolutely, that's something I'm not shying away from. And I think that's kind of the pivot to being a little more personal with the videos going forward. And this is something I've kind of tried to dabble with in the past, but I've always kind of gravitated back to being like, I'll just be a professional automotive journalist, and because that works for other people, why can't it work for me? But I think that the community we've built here is always been a little more personal. If you look at like Sophion Verlaine reviews, dear friend of mine, like he has occasionally been like, hey, we got a new car and do a video on it or something, but like there was never really a personal focus ever really for his channel. It's always just been about covering cars, the professional polished approach, and that's it. And I know so many of you are from those days when it was all personal stuff. It was just, hey, here's my thoughts on my BRZ this week, or here's my thoughts on my Mustang or my Mini, or here's what's going on, in my life in a way, from an automotive standpoint. And then obviously the reviews were added into that. But, I think going back to more personal stuff as much as I can do, again, I don't do much car stuff anymore, so I can't, go to car shows or anything like that as much, but, just trying to keep you guys more updated and just keep things more opinion based and personal, I think hopefully will add a little bit more intrigue, because I think that the professional thing is all fine and well. And again, for the people that it works for, it's great. But I think just for me, it seems like, the personal thing has worked better. And it's just a little more interesting versus just me becoming a generic reviewer, because I think that just doesn't have as much appeal. So I think less professional, more personal is how I'm going to keep trying to slowly pivot the channel here into the next year. And I mean, there's a limit to that for sure, and I'm still going to do tons of professional car reviews, but as we've talked about, I want to repeat myself from anyone who's, most of you probably hear all the live streams. I won't repeat myself, but, trying to just be different to stand out from, ChatGPT and all these other things these days. And just, I think the personal thing is something that can't be duplicated. You can't regurgitate my rants, with ChatGPT really. So I think that's the kind of stuff, leaning into things that are, not able to be duplicated, are definitely the way to go. But anyway, Jordan, thank you so much for a super chat. He says, do you think car news, reveals, and influence will only become interesting and steady after 2028? No, I mean, I think that it's always kind of, at least to me, I mean, I've heard loud and clear, whenever the weekly updates ended, a lot of people just said car news is boring these days. Everything's electrified, everything's heavier, it's more complicated, more tech heavy, whatever the case is. People are just not into new cars. And that's part of why the weekly updates, I think, failed ultimately in the end. But, I personally don't have any issues. Like, I've always been like, oh, this is interesting, and it's a different approach for this or that or the other. And the same way, I still get interested in every press car that I get, even if it's something that's not super exciting. It's like, oh, that's interesting. So, but I need to keep in mind, what is interesting to the viewer, not what is interesting to me. And, so that's why I'm being really picky with the car news that I cover here going forward, and the reveals that I bother covering. Because, car news in and of itself is not a guarantee, even if I don't have competition. Like, it's just that this is an awesome sports car from Toyota, and that's why I did well. I did like a video covering the CX-5, the new 2026 one. When that first came out, I had a pre-embargo stuff, and I was like, oh, I'm going to drop a thing at the embargo. And obviously, again, lots of competition there, but it's just like, it's a CX-5. I mean, it's a good car, but like, no one's, hurrying up and be like, holy crap, man, I uploaded a video on a CX-5, stop everything. Like, it's not quite as exciting. So, I think, again, there's still going to be plenty of exciting stuff. There will be new sports cars. There will be, all kinds of other stuff that I think are going to be the ones to cover for sure. But, turning down the more boring stuff, I think I just need to be even more ruthless with that here next year. Just saying, yeah, they might sell 100,000 of these things every year, but it doesn't matter to my core viewers. And I think that's kind of, instead of trying to be everything to everybody, just really honing in on, being the best that I can be for those of you who do show up for every video, and those of you who do really invest, because again, all the casual people that don't give a crap about me are going to go to ChatGPT. They're going to go to any of the other competitors that have a higher ranked video. So I really think I do need to lean into what you guys want. And I mean, there's sometimes I try that and it doesn't totally work, but I think that's, like we've talked about, going more towards the performance stuff, more towards interesting stuff, is I think, definitely the way forward. I appreciate all the instant feedback there with the hearts and the 100s and stuff. So anyway, I appreciate the question, Jordan. Thank you so much for the super chat. And I'll try to quit talking about the channel here, because I know you guys are probably sick of hearing about that all the time. But Jordan, thank you for another super chat. He says, I mean, with tariffs and regulations flipping day to day, as far as will things become interesting or steady? I mean, I think, with car news like that, to me, like the tariffs and all that stuff make things more chaotic, which for news is good. I mean, that's the one thing for all, I mean, however you feel about the current administration, all that stuff. I mean, from a news standpoint, everyone is eating good. Because, I mean, whenever you have a nice, peaceful, uncontroversial leader, there's not a whole lot to talk about. And in the same way, whenever we don't have all these crazy stories, like the idea of bringing back K cars to America, I mean, that BS, as ridiculous as it was, made me a few bucks, and 5,000 views on a video or whatever it is. So there's opportunities there, and trying to find that silver lining. I'm not mad about the silver lining, at least. I mean, it's not worth all the other insanity that's happened this year, in my opinion. So I'd certainly rather not have to, cover these crazy things. But I think, as far as car news, the thing is, like I've said, I even said in the K car video, car companies plan 5 years out. So yes, they have to ride the waves of what's happening today, tomorrow, and next week. But, when you're, I'm not like a wave rider, but when you're looking at the horizon, you're not hyper focusing on the next little ripple in the current. You're okay. Well, we got these little bumps right here, but we see the horizon there. We know where we're headed. We know what we're doing 5 years from now, and that's kind of the ultimate focus. So I think you're not going to see car companies do crazy pivots. You're going to see little things like Ram was able to bring back the V8. You're going to see some. Like I've talked about with all the tariff stuff, you'll see a little switch ups as far as what production capacity they're doing at different factories, and maybe they'll shift some production around to optimize for tariffs. But ultimately, they understand that Trump's not going to last forever. They understand that these regulations will not last forever. And again, they got to do what's right for them. And this is why even Mary Barra this week at GM said, we're still going to keep improving fuel economy regulations. They're still basically going to act like nothing has changed. Like we're still under the Biden plan. I mean, partially because it's working out really well for GM. They're doing phenomenal with their EVs. I mean, Cadillac is killing it with market share in the EV sector, especially for luxury EVs. I think they're, unless you consider Tesla luxury, but as far as traditional luxury brands goes, Cadillac is far and away the leader. And they did that with, some really impressive products and a lot of hard work. And so same thing with the Chevys and stuff. So I think that GM, wants to still be in that kind of era because they're killing it in that era, and that they still got the gas stuff. They never left with the V8s for the trucks and stuff. So I think that it's, it's working out for them. But I think, they're like, yeah, like, okay, we understand there's no rules for the next couple of years, but like, we still know we need to head to better fuel efficiency. We need to head to electrification because that's what the rest of the world's doing. So yeah, sounds good, but we're going to keep doing our thing, and I think, that's why car companies, they can't pivot fast enough. It's like trying to turn the Titanic on a dime. You can't do it. You ride the waves and, you get through it, and you try and pivot as best you can, but there's only so much you can do with a giant corporation. You can't change things overnight, or in a year or two, so I really don't think there's going to be that quick of a change. And that's why we won't see K cars or anything like that, as far as new production of K cars in America, at least. But Anyway, thank you so much for all the super chats, Jordan. I really appreciate it. And let me see other member questions here. So, where are we here? So, see. Kraken. Okay, yeah, we talked about that. Nicholas says, I was surprised when Farley said Ford can't make money selling sedans. Toyota and Honda sure can. Yeah, Farley says a lot of weird stuff. Sometimes he's right on the money, and I agree with him. Other times I'm like, what is this guy smoking? I mean, like when he said, we'll never make an electric Mustang, it's like, okay, well, you already do, and you've told us that for the past 5 years. And two, okay, so what if we do ever go to a place where gas isn't produced for new cars, or as far as like new internal combustion engine vehicles? Obviously, gas will still be around, but as far as gas burning cars, he's going to discontinue Mustang. Then it's one of those like never say never things. And so I don't know, but yeah, Farley's an interesting guy. For sure. I mean, I haven't met him personally, but yeah, just all the quotes and stuff. It's interesting. And Danny says, interesting fact of the night, then I'll stop talking. In 2005, the Cadillac got an extremely rare option with night vision made by Raytheon. Really cool to see on a grandparent car. Yeah, Cadillac, I mean, GM in general, they do some really cool pioneering stuff every once in a while. And yeah, and I remember I learned after the fact it was Raytheon. I just remember the initial, night vision option because I remember seeing it advertised. But yeah, there was one other thing too that had a military contractor involved, and I can't remember what it was. It was something around that era, something else that was kind of interesting. I can't remember what it was exactly. But yeah, very cool. Thanks for sharing, Danny. Yeah, for the DeVille. And Fuchs says, hot take. I don't hate the Prelude. The Prelude wasn't flagship. It was just a stylish two-door back then, even compared to Civics and Integras. And adjusting for inflation, it's a few grand cheaper. Yeah, in that context, you're absolutely right, and I don't disagree. And if Civic Hybrid was also $40,000, all right, fine. It is what it is. I think again for me, it just falls apart with the competition. The competition within Honda and the competition outside of Honda. And that's the biggest problem. Because you're right. I mean, and if Honda's in this windowless room where they're not looking out at what else is going on in the world, yeah, they stuck with history. They absolutely I think, Prelude is correct for what it has always been. A two-door that has some resemblance and some basis that's shared obviously with other Hondas, but was always kind of like a little bit more progressive, a little bit ahead of the regular versions, and a little more expensive as a result. So yeah, it's just, to me, it's just what else you can get for the money is the problem. Maybe we'll see a gigantic price increase for Type R for 2026 for Civic. Maybe we'll see a price increase for everything from Honda, by a lot this coming year. I don't know, but to me, that's the whole problem. And like I kind of said in my rant, if I'm sure I'll drive Prelude and I'll like it in a vacuum for what it is, because I like Civic Hybrid, and it's not going to be worse than that, I'm hoping. It's just it's just the money thing of what you can get for the other. And the other thing too about inflation to keep in mind is, like, yes, they price it right from an inflation kind of standpoint, but you also have to look at how wages haven't kept up. So yes, it's equivalent to what it was in 2001 or whatever, but 2001, we didn't have as hard of times. We had people being paid better, and that money was a little easier to come by and was a little easier to spare than it is now. So that is the extra problem. As far as why people still feel like they need a $20,000 car, when with inflation, that's really kind of like should be a $30,000 car. It's just 30 is the new 20, but just people aren't feeling that because they didn't get a 30% pay boost. None of us did. I guess I shouldn't say none. I'm sure there's some people that are lighting cigars with $100 bills, but most of us haven't felt a gigantic boost in our pay the way we've seen a giant boost in prices. So I think that is the other component that just helps it to not land as well as it would have, objectively speaking, just looking at the math and looking at history and saying, okay, we checked all the boxes from a historical standpoint. We checked all the boxes from a converting price to modern times kind of standpoint. I still don't know how they justified it over Integra. It's $3,000 more than Integra, with adaptive dampers also in Integra and all that. I don't know. Again, we'll see. I'm curious to drive it. I will review it, but I'm just gonna slaughter it in the pricing and competitor comparison segment at the end, because it's like, all right, this was great until you look at what else is out there for the money. But I completely, yeah, everything you said, Fook, I don't disagree with. 100% agree. Just if the whole sports car market evaporates and there's no competitors tomorrow, then I won't have a problem with the price, I suppose. But Jordan, thank you so much for that super chat. He says, Toyota new supercar, Lexus EV revealed, 2 GR reveals, same family. Ford's got a new EV platform, possible for a lithium reveal, and Ford or Mustang or Fusion reveal. Now, Ford has already kind of pretty clearly said what's coming from them. The next thing. So the EV 3 rows they were supposed to be doing are now EV, or are now plug-in hybrid. Probably range extender kind of things like the new Grand Wagoneer. That's what they're doing instead, which for that buyer is probably the right move anyway, even though it's a little disappointing to see them backpedal. Probably the right thing for that buyer specifically. So we know those are coming. We know, again, this weird electric truck thing, it might be Ranchero, might not, I don't know, but that coming. And then now they're saying this like little electric sedan, this rural drive coming also. Again, the 4-door actual gas Mustang rumors are all over the place. I think the only other thing though to expect from Ford this year is for 2026 is GT500 or whatever because they might not use that name anymore, but that the high performance Mustang seems to be about ready to go, because there's been a lot of spy mules tested around recently that have like the production intent exhaust, just have the bagged camo, on the spicy bits. And that's it. So, I mean, I think, that's, I mean, maybe there'll be other things, and surprises for sure, but I think that's about all you can expect from Ford. Definitely no lithium. I mean, yes, they have that, Lego platform they're building here with these EVs. They could do more, but Ford doesn't typically do that. I mean, I was expecting the same thing with Mach-E. You got this great Mach-E platform, and they've done nothing with it. You got Mach-E still, which is barely different than it was in 2021. We're almost going 5 years into it, and it's the same. I mean, they've improved the motors. Battery chemistry has been switched up a tiny bit. It's got a few little tiny tweaks to the interior, but it's, I'd say 85% the same car. I was expecting the second Mach-E came out. I'm like, all right, we're going to get a Lincoln version. We're going to get a sedan version. And we'll also get a larger thing, basically what Cadillac has done. That's what I was expecting from Ford. Okay, we have a platform. Now we do small, medium, large, extra large, whatever, do something different. That's the logical way to do it. And it's cheaper. You multiply your work out there, and Ford hasn't done any of that. So clearly, and they're not the only ones, but having an EV platform that is easy to adapt to other body styles doesn't mean they will. And I don't know why. I don't know if they can't find the business case or they don't want to do it or what. But I would keep your hopes pretty low for any other fun surprises from Ford outside of the stuff they've already talked about. And Jordan says that they need a new supercar. Yeah, well, I think for them, Mustang GTD is what they're happy with. There was one other Farley thing he said in the past week or two. He said he wanted to do something. I can't remember what it was, because it wasn't like a mid-engine supercar, because he's already done that. I can't remember what he said. He wants to do something else new that's a new sports car. I think it was kind of something similar to no, I don't even know. Yeah. I don't remember what it was. I think that it's right on the tip of my tongue. I can't. Yeah, it's something. It's some kind of supercar kind of thing that he wants. Oh, he wants to do an off-road supercar, is what he said at some point recently. I'm not sure what an off-road supercar. I think he just wants to do like the Lamborghini Storado kind of thing. But aside from taking GTD and Raptorifying it. There's nothing on the part shelf to do that quickly enough, so I don't know, but I guess that's kind of his next thing is he's like, oh, I'd love to do some kind of crazy fast car off-roader, I guess, because I'd say Raptor R already kind of checks that box. But yeah, Lancewell says Mustang Raptor, and yeah, there's been rumors of that. I actually covered that in the weekly update a couple of years back of a Mustang Raptor. But apparently that's been laughed off whenever like they've asked him point blank, like, why aren't you Raptoring all the things? It's very popular, and this is the trend. And he seemed to shoot that down. Maybe that was just cover, and they will actually do that or not. I don't know, but that was what he said recently. Maybe he's changed his tune since a couple of years ago, but it sounds like that might be the next goal for them is make some wild off-road car instead. And so following up, just while we're on the same train of thought, Jordan's asking, so Matt, is Ford stagnant? I wouldn't call them stagnant. I would say they're kind of not quite like Chrysler, but in a similar space where you're just kind of at a lull in the lineup right now. Because they just did like the mild refresh for Mach-E this past year, for F-150, for Maverick. Everything kind of got its mid-cycle refresh, and now we wait for the next couple of years for the actual crazy new stuff. They teased the platform and the production, the new production style for this new Team Edison electric thing that's being developed at some skunk works in California or whatever. So there's that stuff. I don't know if that's going to come out next year though, or when that's coming out, because I think now they for any of these EV projects, they're like, hey, let's take our time, because what's the rush? We're going to be launching this into a very hostile environment. So why rush it? So I think, any of the EV stuff certainly is going to not be put on the back burner completely, but, it's going to be on the slow boat, and they'll take their sweet time with it and launch it whenever they think it makes sense, I guess, when they see the demand and have the confidence. But I don't blame them for, holding back in the meantime, at least for America. The rest of the world, they can launch stuff and we can watch from afar while the rest of the world progresses. But yeah, I think, for us, it makes sense to just, focus on the stuff that, people want to buy. That's the easy, low hanging fruit in the meantime, unfortunately. And that will make it a little bit more boring from a car news standpoint for them. But, but same thing like Chrysler. Apparently Chrysler, they just had an interview with their CEO, and, she's like, there's a bunch of stuff. She's pretty clear about like, there's going to be a new small affordable Chrysler. I was considering doing a video on this, but I don't think it was quite sexy enough to do a video on. Like Chrysler is going to be, they came out and said, their CEO just straight up said, I think there's some Mopar insiders did a story about this. They're actually caring about an affordable Chrysler, which I'm not convinced is the right move. They were like, oh, we really need to focus on affordability and like making the everyman's kind of luxury vehicle, which I can respect that idea. But as we're seeing other car companies going up market, I wonder if it's the profitable approach to be like, hey, let's like really swing for the fences, but keep it cheap. I think there's certainly demand for something like that, but will that pay the bills for Chrysler? I don't know. I was assuming Chrysler was going to push up market and say, hey, let's try and make, $75,000 cars or whatever. And maybe they just figured people would see right through that and wouldn't buy that. I don't know. I think it could go either way. And I don't know what the right answer is for them. But, anyway, it sounds like they are saying they want to do, and not only like an SUV, like they're going to do, the airflow concept. They've kind of gone back to the drawing board with that, was the rumor. We'll get some kind of thing like that, but it won't look like the airflow. But they're going to have that EV that's coming out. And then they said they're going to have a smaller, more affordable like EV sedan. And then there's also heavy rumors that the 300 is coming back, probably as an EV. So, but then they think, there's gonna be a heavily redone, I don't think it's been completely all new, but a heavily refreshed Pacifica, I think actually coming here in 2026. But Chrysler, everyone's like, is Chrysler dead? And like, that's why the CEO was like, look, here's all the crap we've got coming out. Get off our backs. Because like, it's just, they're in this lull where it's like, they don't have anything to show us right now, but they're very much, working hard and stuff is coming. It's just with the launch cycle, they're just kind of in a lull. And I think Ford's kind of in the same spot in a way. But let me see. So getting back to the member questions, I know I don't want to like hop around on topics here too much, but I also don't want to completely neglect the people that have been waiting a half an hour for an answer either. So let me quickly see if I can get through some of these here. So Chad says he saw an EV Escalade on his way home and was surprised by how it wasn't impressive. Might have just been that they were purposely driving like a jerk to other cars. And that skewed my opinion. Yeah, there's probably some of that for sure. But yeah, I mean it's cool. It's really big, and it's a nice ride for sure. But yeah, I mean that's one car I actually refused multiple times when Cadillac offered those to me because I'm like, I just don't think anyone's going to care on this channel, honestly. I wouldn't complain about driving it around for a week, but again, it's I don't think it's really got a ton of appeal outside of again those very few buyers that want an EV that's enormous like that. But it still doesn't have as much cargo space as a regular Escalade, so still a little bit of a hard sell, even with the huge battery and all that. But anyway, Theodore says, "Why are trucks so crazy expensive now?" Uh I mean, again, inflation is a lot of it. Beyond that, the standard content bloat has really, I think, pushed it up a lot as well. And I'm not talking about like safety tech either. I'm talking about everyone's expecting, big screens. Everyone's expecting, a bunch of features, a bunch of capability. I mean, that's the other thing. These motors and stuff are so over-engineered now. They're so powerful. Everything tows, a zillion pounds, and you can pull the space shuttle with everything out there these days. It's just like it's kind of overkill, but that's what those buyers like. They like those bragging rights. They, want to be able to know they can change the gravity of the moon with their truck. And, it's just this, ever raising bar that I think is part of what's to blame for that. And also I think they're following the market and people say they want expensive trucks. Now, again, all the people online are pissed off about it. But when you look at actual buyers and transaction prices, there's a lot of urban cowboys that just, want these really nice trucks for going back and forth to work in or whatever. And this is why GMC has seen huge growth in the past few years. They're like really happy with how GMC has really done very well because it's the only brand that's slightly upmarket premium in the truck space for actual trucks that are, especially American trucks. And this is why you see Tundra added capstone, but especially like GMC says the Denali brand is exploding. Everyone wants a Denali GMC. They sell the lower stuff, but they sell Denali's way more. Which usually it typically was uncommon to see the top trim be like the top seller because it's so expensive. Usually, it's a mid-grade trim that is the one that's the meat and potatoes in the lineup. But no, it's like everyone, if you're going for a GMC, you're getting a Denali, and like that's obviously there's some exceptions there, but every time I've been at a GMC event in the past few years, they're like Denali's exploding, and that's why they're putting Denali on everything from terrain and everything is people want that Denali badge, and so they're like, okay, well, and this is why like it wasn't even good enough like with Sierra. It wasn't good enough to just have Denali. Now there's Denali Ultimate because people wanted more. They said, hey, I like Denali, but I want to spend another $5,000 to $10,000 more to be nicer than my neighbor's Denali. How do I do that? Well, we'll do Denali Ultimate. And I don't know where they're going to go from there, but like, they wouldn't do that if people were like, oh, I can't afford a Denali. They would go, they again follow the market. The market is going up, at least for now. I still think we're in some kind of bubble that will burst consumer wise in a variety of sectors. But for now, everyone's wanting to go higher. And so I think, that's the fact that Denali Ultimate exists tells you everything you need to know about where actual truck buyers are and the lack of validity to the complaints about expensive trucks. I mean, maybe they have certainly priced a lot of people out of the market for trucks, but the people who matter, the ones that are the profitable buyers that buy these high profit margin top trucks, that's the customer they're taking care of, and those customers seem to be very happy and are buying them in huge amounts. So I think that's that's the way it's headed. And if this, if we do have some kind of crazy market correction and economy troubles here, further troubles, I guess I should say, but more dire circumstances here in the future, obviously we'll see that kind of scale back. But I think that trend is kind of there to stay, because the people that are affording Denali Ultimates, they're not going to be really that hurt by a recession, most likely. They're a little more insulated. So I think even that's the other great thing about it for the car companies, is like those buyers aren't going to, up and leave, versus someone who's maybe buying a base Ford Expedition, or someone who's, buying an Explorer, something like, they might be more price sensitive and say, oh no, I can't afford my gas anymore. I'm going down to a, smaller SUV, or I'm going down to a sedan or something, like we saw with the recession, where everyone dumped their big, huge Hummers and stuff in 2009, 2008, and went to some more practical stuff. I think we're going to see less of that in the upper echelons of the car pricing stratosphere, and I think that's why companies find safety and security in that, because those buyers will still show up, because we've seen, again, ever since 2020, the billionaires have increased their money by huge amounts. But even for millionaires, a lot of them have gotten way richer and at a much faster pace in the past 5 years than ever before. So again, this gap is widening, and obviously the car companies are going to go for the upper part of that gap and leave the lower half behind, sadly. But again, it's all about the shareholders and capitalism to them. So that's kind of that's what they have to do for their shareholders. I don't love it, but I think that's, from a business standpoint, the way they're kind of thinking, potentially. And Jordan, thank you so much for another super chat. He says, has Slate asked you to review their vehicle? I kind of feel from promos and content that it might make it. I could be wrong. I hope Slate really does. They have not asked me to do anything yet. I think they've done, a few little things with some LA-based people, or the people who are really important that are worth flying in, or whatever they do. I don't know. I've never had Slate reach out to me. Obviously, yeah, I'm a big fan. And I, it's the car that I've been telling you guys for years. I was like, I really wish I had the ability to make a bare bones car, and that's the Slate. So I'm excited for it. But yeah, haven't been invited to anything yet. They're still a ways off. We'll see, in the future if there's an opportunity there. I'd absolutely love to cover it. I'd love to, check one out, do a walk around on one, whatever. Because I personally would like to kind of touch it and feel it, and, see how it is in real life versus, what it appears to be, from afar. But yeah, hopefully, yeah, once they get closer to production, I'll be able to do some stuff. We'll see. I think it can make it, especially because it is kind of close to the K car truck kind of thing. For all the people that came out of the woodwork a few days ago on my video and said, oh, I want a K truck. It's like, well, where were you, all these years with all the other K trucks that you can already import? Why aren't you driving one of those already? Why aren't you buying a subcompact if you love tiny cars so much? But anyway, but I think Slate is kind of in that same vein, and it's something that actually will be coming, hopefully to production. But I'm kind of hoping all these K car lovers that randomly popped up overnight get redirected into the Slate fan club, because I think that's going to be your only actual thing like that if you are someone who's pining for that kind of stuff new built in America. But anyway, thank you, Jordan, for the super chat. And Chad, thank you for a super chat as well. He says, with no hope for some to own property, people are feeling okay with forever loans for higher trims and models. Maintain payments and never get ahead. Yeah, I mean, a lot of people, I saw this even, 10 or 15 years ago, a lot of people, only shop by the payment. And for leases, that makes sense, because, you're not really building too much equity with a lease, and it's not really structured to be something that you're, holding on to, or, it's just renting a car essentially, So with leasing, I don't, blame people for shopping by payment really. But whenever, you're talking about actual cars, a lot of people, they don't appreciate the equity component, and, it's just, well, what payment can I afford? And that's very important, but it's also, the idea, if you're really trying to maximize that, of building that equity, and that can really benefit you down the road if you play your cards right. But yeah, I think, the forever loan thing is, yeah, I don't think it's a good solution. Obviously, it's just another symptom of these issues that this is even something that is being talked about, that's being necessary. And I remember, it's not a new thing. I mean, I remember talking to, some buddies that owned car dealerships and joking around about how, like, especially in like the cars and coffee club, around here, there's, the people who actually can afford it. And then there's the people who, are doing these. I think the one around here is like called like Woodside Credit, where they do like 12-year loans on supercars. And it's like, and most of the people, they're not buying the supercars that appreciate, they're buying the ones that depreciate. And it's like, holy crap, you're taking a bath on this thing whenever you sell it. But yeah, I mean, that's still been a thing. Like, there's so many of these supercars that get financed already with 12-year loans, because how else can you afford a $300,000 car if you're not actually rich? And that's what they do, is they break it up. And if, it's not impossible, if you are, a single person who has, a small amount of living expenses, and you're making decent money and you really prioritize it, like, yeah, you can probably make a long-term supercar loan payment work and achieve that wild dream. Long term, is it great? I don't know. I mean, it comes down to the car and all that and a bunch of other variables, but there is a lot of that. And one of my old buddies at Cars and Coffee, he said he wished there was a row of cars that had the pink slip on the dashboard. Like, okay, who actually owns these things and who's just renting them? it was his way of thinking, which, again, there's different pros and cons of that, because I think if you're wrapping up $300,000 in a depreciating asset, you're probably better off actually financing it, because you can probably make way more money if you're getting a decent interest rate, make way more in the market, having that money work for you. But, it's a whole other topic. But it's kind of a funny thing of, yeah, what is the limit of how long a term should be? What is appropriate, in modern times and all that. But yeah, we got to fix the wage gaps in this country, and just, make it so you don't need a gigantic loan. So it really, like we said, with Prelude and others, with inflation, pricing isn't crazy for cars. It's just that, all that money's going into the pockets of the executives instead of being distributed out. And we need some kind of cap on a multiple for CEO pay compared to the lowest worker, and things like that, where you say, okay, sure, you can make 50 times more, but not 150 times more, or whatever the case is, just to put some kind of guardrails in place instead of having it be completely unchecked. But anyway, man, I'm doing bad on the tangents tonight, but anyway, yeah, thank you, Chad, for the super chat there. And Darnell, thank you so much for a super chat as well. He says, it sucks to see the rich get richer, but the average American is the one signing the loans on these luxury trucks and cars. Yeah, I mean, and that's the other thing I keep going back to, is you're absolutely right. Like, someone else just mentioned this too with the K cars. Someone was, mad at me for the K car video, and they're like, people want K cars because they can't afford anything. And yes, that's true. But at the same time, these people that are underwater on their car loans, they're signing on the dotted line. They're agreeing, yes, I want to pay $1,000 a month for a car. And it's, we just don't have good financial literacy in this country. It's always been about, buying more than you need. It's always been about excess. It's always about, well, what if I need to transport a mattress someday? Maybe I better buy a truck. Or, hey, well, we might get some snow this winter. I better go out and make sure I have, a Raptor or some BS like that. I mean, there's a lot of that stuff. I mean, around here, it's like, it's mandatory to own a Subaru, because you got to have all-wheel drive for, the 5 times a year you actually drive on a snow-covered road. Just so much overkill when people don't. I mean, this is why, sedans are still struggling. I mean, they've kind of stabilized, but like, the reason why we had this huge sedan drop off is everyone said, oh, I gotta have an SUV. It's like, well, if you're broke, what do you need an SUV for? Like, a sedan will still do 90% of the same stuff. You can get a nice large sedan, same legroom, same interior passenger space. You just, yeah, maybe you can't bring home that big screen TV as easily. Go rent a U-Haul for a day, but like, so if people won't even compromise to the point of getting a sedan, that's why, another reason why they're never going to go for a K car, because Americans can't even compromise to bring themselves to buy a sedan. Like, that's, oh, I don't want a sedan. Ugh. So like, if we're at that level of pride from a buying standpoint, there's no way we're going to go lower, unless things get really nasty and ugly in this country, So, I mean, like, people are choosing to say, I need to buy the $40,000 bare bones crappy Wrangler and spend 40 grand on that instead of buying a loaded Camry for that money or whatever the case is. Like, people are choosing to make their lives harder. And maybe some people genuinely don't know. I mean, there's a lot of naive people that just have no clue. I mean, like I heard another journalist that one of their friends bought a Wrangler 4xe. They didn't even know it was a plug-in hybrid. They didn't even realize they were paying a price premium for the 4xe thing or any of that. They just said, oh, I want a Wrangler, and the salesman said, okay, give me this much money please, or sign for this much monthly payment. They said okay, and it's literally that simple for some people. And so, like, whenever you have that lack of analysis happening in a lot of car buyers' minds, it's just, you're going to have to do a whole lot more education, I guess, to let people know their options. And maybe, the stuff like ChatGPT will do that. If YouTube videos and other things aren't putting that out there enough, hopefully ChatGPT says, hey, you say, you need a big cargo space. In addition to these SUVs you really like, maybe consider the giant trunk in the Dodge Charger. That's a huge liftback, or whatever. These other things maybe will open people up to other options, so they're not closed-minded as much. But it's just, Americans are just very much not willing to compromise, and this has always been a problem. This is why European cars don't do well in America, because European cars are engineered for what people need, and people only buy what they need. Same thing with their EVs. This is why EVs are doing much better in the rest of the world than they are here, because in the rest of the world, they say, I only drive 30 miles a day for my job. If I'm going to, drive a far distance, I'm getting on a plane, or I'm renting a car if I happen to be in that weird middle ground. And they say, what do I need 300 miles of range for? But in America, obviously we have more space here, but for suburban dwellers who are, getting on a plane for every trip, but but I still have to have 400 miles of range. Like it's all those types of things that are, holding us back. And that's why, it's a culture thing. Again, Europe doesn't have this problem. Japan doesn't have this problem. They understand, what they need, and they buy what they need, not what they think they might need in the apocalypse if, we have fallout happen or whatever. I mean, it's that whole kind of problem that we have as a culture. Anyway, and Chad says, thank you for the super chat. He says, forever loans equals gambling, no initial pain / instant high. That's true. That's a good way to look at it. It is kind of like, okay, you're getting that new car smell, you're getting that car, you're achieving that, and you deal with it later. It's, like a lot of the other popular things, furniture, no payments for 90 days, no payments for 3 years, whatever the deal is, these days, same kind of thing of, just get them to sign on the line and have them figure it out later. And then that later is, a lot of pain, or, tanking your credit score by walking away, or whatever the case is. And this is why repos are at an all-time high, higher than they've ever been, I think, since 1994, even higher than the recession already in 2008. So we'll see, how that all plays out here this next year. Should be interesting. And thank you so much again for all the super chats. I really appreciate it. And all right, back to the other member questions here. Let's see if we can get a little bit more caught up. So let me see. Shot by Trev says, between the F80 M3 and M340i, which would you rather buy and why? I have still not driven the F80 M3. So I personally can say I hate the way the front end looks still, but putting that aside, I mean, obviously M3 is great. I love that you have a manual option. It's entirely a personal preference thing. How much power do you need? M340i is plenty of car to have fun with, on the commutes, and all the usual kind of driving and stuff. It's super fast. It sounds great. It's comfy. What more do you need? But obviously cars are not rational purchases. Oftentimes there's an emotional component, especially for sporty cars. And if, the M3 is the more fun choice to you and you've got the spare cash, go for it, I guess. But I've not driven it, so I can't say for sure. But if it were me, it really comes down to exactly what your situation is. If you're if you can only have one car, like you only have one parking space or something, need something that does everything for you, then go for it. Personally, save money, get an M340i, then maybe pick up, Miata or something for times when you want to go, tear up a back road or something. I don't know. But M3 seems to be great. People really love them. They sell in really good numbers. Just yeah, for some reason, it's been one of the very elusive cars I haven't had a chance to review because BMW just doesn't send me stuff typically. And they don't pop up on the used markets. All the dealerships I work with don't ever seem to get any used M3s in either. All right, so let me see here. We still have a decent amount of time. I'll try and do some non-member questions. I'll probably start going to member only here in a little bit if we get too far behind. But Danny says the rarest Ford Fusion model is the 2010 S or SE with the 2.5 liter and a 6-speed manual. Only about 5,000 are made in total. I didn't know they did a manual Fusion. That's pretty cool. Thanks for letting us know. Mr. 705 says, what's your opinion on the GR-GT? I personally think it'll be a hit. I just hope it doesn't go to collectors and people who want to flip it. I mean, there will be certainly, a lot of that, I'm sure. It'll come down to price as far as how big of a hit it'll be. The rumors are between 250 grand and 500 grand, which I think is fairly on the money. Again, it comes down to what you're comparing it to, because if you're serious about a sports car and you got 250 to spend, you're kind of crazy at anything other than a Corvette 01. It's just way higher performing, just bonkers. It's a mid-engine proper supercar. The front engine thing with the GR-GT is awesome. I love GR-GT. It seems really cool. If I had that money, I'd be in a Z06 all day, every day, and if I just wanted a cool Toyota that sounded good and was front engine rear-wheel drive, I'm just getting a Lexus LC500. Obviously, that's going away soon, so this is kind of that kind of next generation of that in a way. I think it's gonna be very impressive. I think personally, like the GT3 car for the road thing is a fun idea, and I'm sure it'll be a blast to review. But I don't, for me, I don't think it's going to be a car that I would like put on my lottery dream car wish list or anything like that. But it seems awesome. And I mean, we'll see, how sound is. And I mean, it might really win me over. I like it. It's not that I dislike it. It just, again, especially because of Corvette, we just are very much, even in that price range, spoiled for choice. There's a lot of cool stuff out these days in the 6-figure realm. I mean, I think it kind of, it's going to be limited production, I'm sure, so they're not looking for commercial success. I'm sure with this, they probably don't care how it sells, honestly. But, I think especially in America, it's going to be a little bit of an uphill battle, especially for the Toyota version, because you're still going to get the old school person who says, oh, I'm not paying 250 grand for a Toyota, and that kind of thing. So there's going to be some of that. There will be people who obviously appreciate it and know it's a special, race car for the road, because that thing is kind of rare, that kind of component. But, and I mean, it undercuts Mustang GTD, by what, like 100 grand or so. If it is 250, I guess it could match GTD on price, but it's going to probably be that level of sales, that level of appreciation. And I'd say that's the closest competitor, it's because I think that's the only like GT3 car, I guess, unless you're talking about like Porsche 911 GT3 RS or something. But there's very few cars like that. So for that buyer that likes hard edged, stuff, I think it'll be, pretty cool. But I don't know if I'll ever get to drive it, because that's probably not going to be the usual Toyota kind of media drive thing. So we'll see. I'd love to try one someday, but I'm sure they won't even be in the press fleets or anything like that. So might be irrelevant what I think, because I might not ever get a shot at it. But it's going to definitely be a collector kind of thing for a while, probably forever, honestly. Because I can't imagine if they make more than 500 a year, I'll be shocked. I don't know if they've said, I don't think they said how many they're going to make yet, but I'm sure it's not going to be a lot. And honestly, again, because it's going to be sweet, and I'm sure it'll be very, very impressive. But again, for me, like the LFA is a little more interesting, because it's going to be like the pioneering thing of like, okay, well, what are we doing next? Because as a reviewer, it's like, okay, I've driven a zillion cars with a twin turbo 4-liter V8 under the hood. That's, I mean, like Aston Martin Vantage, literally just drove that, back in March. 4-liter twin turbo V8 with a rear mounted transaxle. Absolute blast, totally fun experience. 250, or I don't know how much that one was. I think it was closer to like 350 possibly. But it's fun, but not with Toyota obviously, but I've been there, done that in a way. And so to me, like LFA is kind of this new thing of, oh, you're going to try copying Ioniq 5N fun, possibly. You're going to try and do new sounds. Like to me, that's different. And like different is what gets me intrigued, not more of the same, which really discounts what that car is because it's going to be epic for GRGT, I'm sure. But as a reviewer, again, it's just the LFA is the one that kind of breaks the mold a little bit more, especially considering everyone else is kind of shying away from EV supercars. So that's the one I'm personally kind of, following a little bit more. But I'm excited for GRGT. It should be awesome. And, I think it's also good to see Toyota really, kind of go for the gold and say, hey, look, like we can compete with the best of them, and also kind of redeems them for the haters that didn't like Supra. And say, oh, why can't Toyota make their own supercar? Why can't they make their own sports cars? And this is, I'm pretty sure, entirely Toyota effort. So it's like, yeah, well, not only can we make a sports car, but we can make an actual GT3 racing car that hopefully is very successful in racing, also is fantastic on the road, and is like totally badass. I think that's kind of like the giant middle finger to all the people that said, oh, they can't build a sports car anymore. They get a Subaru for the, GR86. They're going to go to BMW for the Supra, blah, blah, blah. It's like, no, we can do it. Like, we're a gigantic company. Toyota is enormous. They have the money. They have the talent. They absolutely can do it if they feel like it. And they felt like it. And now we have the result of that, and I'm excited. I think, again, it's just this tip of the iceberg. There's more to come. It's seems like now the recent trademark was for MRS instead of MR2. So, which is what we saw for the last generation. They dropped the MR2 thing for MRS here in the States. So I think, there's a good chance that comes back, fairly soon. I don't know anything, but, I'm guessing that is coming fairly soon. The rumors of Celica still won't stop. So I think that's, still coming. I think I'm just excited, for this new generation of new GR products coming down the road. The rumors of a new GR86 potentially, all kinds of fun stuff. It's exciting to see. And Etch says, had an Ioniq 5 for Uber, way better than Tesla, so smooth. And the Uber driver said he gets over 700 to 800 kilometers per charge in the summer. Nice. Yeah, they're great cars. They're not perfect. They have kind of a similar issue the Mach-E had, where you have the breaker box, for lack of a better term, kind of like the alternator of the EV system that can fail and leave people stranded. Just like Mach-E had some issues with that, and Hyundai is not really figuring out how to fix that very well. So there's a little bit of that, but by and large, Ioniq 5s are still selling in huge numbers. Lots of people are very happy with them, and they're great cars. We just had one in this year to review, and it was a really nice car for sure. And let me see here. Chad, thanks so much for giving a membership. I really appreciate that. And happy to see the Trading for Science is able to get that one. That's a fun username. And I see they hopped right in to start commenting as well. So thank you so much for that gift, Chad. And I will get to your comments very soon, Trading for Science. So stay tuned. And Jordan, thank you so much for another super chat. He says, I emailed the Slate site your email with messaging that you are an honest YouTube reviewer. I also sent you the screenshots of my email. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And yeah, I could reach out to him too. I think, like, until they're ready to say more about it, everything that's already been covered has kind of been covered. Obviously, yeah, I can give my 2 cents on, how the materials feel inside and stuff, but even that's pre-production, so far. So I'm all right just, waiting and seeing how it goes. And I'm hoping, once they get closer to production, that it does, they do give me an opportunity. But did they even say what the range is? I don't know if they did, because it might be kind of hard to get as a press loan. So I'm hoping they just invite me on the media drive whenever they do that. But Anyway, yeah, I'm excited for it. Thank you so much though for doing that chat, or Jordan. I really appreciate it. And yeah, I'll let you know if they respond or if they reach out at all. And thank you again for the super chat. And let me see here. So, where were we here? So, gotta be concise. Gotta be concise. Yeah, we covered that. Corvette says, so tomorrow my dad and I will do some more test driving, like the BZ and Cadillac Optic. I'm looking forward to when he test drives the Optic. Yeah, Optic's great. And if you don't need CarPlay, yeah, we would have probably had an Optic, honestly. It's a very nice vehicle. I see a bunch of them around here. They seem to be pretty popular. And so, yeah, hope the test drives go smoothly. Have fun. And curious to hear, what you guys think after tomorrow. And Smile Per Mile, thanks for stopping by. It's great to see you again, Matt. Great to see you as well. Really appreciate you stopping by. And Danny also says, stay away from some of the newer Jeeps with the V6, specifically the Grand Cherokee. My friend has one with lots of issues. Transmission slowed it down, shift, water pump died already. Yeah, so the Pentastar and the V6 has been around forever. So the V6 itself should be okay. It's the problem of the rest of the car around it that might be problematic. And so one of the videos I'm going to be doing this week is going to dip my toes in talking about vehicle reliability, because I have a personal neighbor story actually to kind of discuss. And it was just, I don't want to spoil the video, so I'm sorry I'm talking cryptically here, but there's a vehicle that I thought was very reliable, and my neighbor had a complete failure with theirs this week, or in the past couple of weeks here. And I started doing more digging, and I'm like, oh damn, like there's actually some real issues here, and some not so great conduct is in response to these issues. And so I'm going to be covering that this week, and you'll be seeing more about that. But it's not just any one brand. There's more and more vehicles where I'm hearing about more issues than I feel like I have in the past for a variety of brands. And I don't know, things are just like, quality is, I don't know if people are just cutting corners more or what the deal is, but it seems like we got to a point where things were very reliable for a while. And I feel like whether it's minor glitchy stuff or it's major issues that shouldn't be happening at this late in the game, it's like, I'm starting to see more and more cracks in the facade for a lot of these brands and their previously highly esteemed images. And it's just like, okay, I'm hearing about issues with this brand, I'm hearing about issues with this brand. Obviously, everyone has, at least one bad apple, and you're going to have a few people, no matter what car it is, and no matter how reliable it is, where you have a few people that end up getting screwed and have it, fail on them for whatever reason. But I feel like I'm seeing more, and these aren't just like anecdotal stories. It's like class action lawsuits, and there's, more and more recalls and all these other things. And it's kind of an interesting thing. Again, we'll see how deep I go into this stuff, but I'm going to see how this video does this week on this one I'm going to be talking about. And if it's worth doing more, I'm going to use my platform to raise awareness. And car companies are not going to like it, but like, if I'm uncovering issues and flaws and things where I'm like, this should not be happening in 2025. Why are we figuring this out now? And why are we not addressing these things better? Like, I'm going to put them on blast for that. So, just again, anytime I have info for you guys that I think will benefit you guys and make you more informed consumers and all that, I'm absolutely going to do it, regardless of what it ends up getting as far as backlash and stuff. But so it's interesting about the Jeep. I mean, I've heard Jeep having some issues, but sorry to hear about your friend having issues, Danny. And Jeep's one of those ones that certainly does struggle. I mean, I think the last time I had a check engine light in a press car was in the Wrangler 4xe. It is what it is. They're struggling. I mean, I did that video. I roasted the Ram when I had one for a week, and had a bunch of issues with that too. It just, some stuff's just they're struggling with. So Raphael says, I've driven the iNEC 5N and it was excellent. The sound was awful, and that's something they really need to work on. Interesting. Yeah, I guess, it just lands on everyone differently. for me, it would sound like an Elantra N. I was happy, but I know for some people that didn't match what the car was, and they didn't like that it didn't sound different enough. Other people just, yeah, like they didn't like the way it was piped through the speakers or however, they kind of processed the audio for that. I guess some people had some complaints with, but yeah, everyone's different. I personally, as you saw in my video, I loved it, but I'm excited to see what other brands do and how they improve upon things. It sounds like even Ioniq 6N, they've kind of switched it up a little bit with the sound stuff and tweaked it and made it unique and hopefully improved some of the other components of it as well. So I'm very curious to drive that. That's probably one of the cars I'm most excited to drive next year is Ioniq 6N. So we'll see. But Smile Permel also says, I have a feeling that the GRGT will be heavily compared to Shelby GTD. Yep. Yeah, so you're right there ahead of me half an hour ago or whatever. Absolutely right. And Etch says, stay away from Stellantis, period, unless it's a heaven cat and you can afford the repairs. I mean, but like, yeah, my 500E has been great, knock on wood so far. I think Stellantis does make some good stuff. Dodge really climbed up the ratings for Consumer Reports in the past few years. I don't really put too much stock in them, but like just an indicator that, hey, like maybe they're, improving some stuff. Cause again, it's old motors. They're proven, shouldn't have new issues. So I think it's like a lot of brands. I think there's some where they do things better than others, and certain models are either a little more experimental or a little bit more cutting edge than some of the more tried and true products in their lineups or whatever the case is. Those types of things that would kind of get them into trouble is those products that are a little more daring than the usual stuff. And Danny says it has about 24,000 miles and it's a 2024 on lease for the Jeep. Transmission is giving passing power. He had to tap the gas 10 times, then it reacts. Then the water pump died, and it sounded like someone was committing murder. Interesting. Yeah, well, at least it's all under warranty. And I think that's the other thing, too, is I'm going to start recommending extended warranties to anyone who keeps something beyond the regular warranty period, because I'm having less and less confidence that cars aren't going to be falling apart, beyond the warranty period. And I mean, obviously that's extra cost and, not for everyone. And for certain brands, I think you're safer to skip it than others. But, I think that a reputable, not these scammy third-party things, but a reputable extended warranty from the manufacturer or from, a good dealer or something is probably a good investment, especially if you're going to keep it a long time, because it just seems like you're rolling the dice more with a lot of cars these days than you were in the past. Michelle says, funny thing, the other day, your video about the K cars not coming to America was below Kirk Rifle's vid that said K cars will come to America. That's funny. Yeah, there was a bunch of triggers that led to that Rand video. His was one of them. Honda Pro Jason was another one. It was like, they're coming back. And it's like, man, I guess I got to be the one that speaks out because, yeah, this crap just, again, and there was a bunch of others. It wasn't just the two of them. There's a bunch of other stuff that I saw online. And I'm like, all right, sounds like I'm going to have to be the voice of reason here if everyone else is just going to hop on the hype train and tell people what they want to hear. I'm fine telling people the uncomfortable truth, I suppose, or at least in my opinion. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe we'll have K cars by next summer and I'll be eating crow all year. I don't know. We'll see. But I'm pretty confident that video will age well, but we'll see. Anyway, Jordan says, can we expect an ugly Christmas sweater at some point on a live before the end of December? I could probably do one. I do have, it's not a real Christmas sweater, but it's like a sweatshirt that has like a print of a Christmas sweater on it. That's actually Back to the Future, kind of a fun thing. I think for those of you who are real long time fans, I think whenever I got that, it was probably like 2015 or 2016 at this point. I think Beth and I did a picture possibly in front of our Christmas tree for like a Merry Christmas post or something. And I think I was wearing it in that, but that's the only thing like that I have. So I can put that on. I don't know how much you guys don't really see too much of my shirts in these, but I can put that on here for one of the last lives. I didn't even look at the calendar as far as I think Christmas is a Thursday, right? So if it's probably won't do the Wednesday live stream if it's like Christmas Eve. I don't have to look, but anyway, we'll deal with that in a few weeks. But yeah, I'll try and wear that one at least. Yeah, but I don't have any other fun ugly sweaters or any other automotive themed Christmas stuff or anything, unfortunately, to share. But it's a fun idea. And Kraken says Uconnect 5 has some bugs. My mom's Jeep doesn't like connecting to Android Auto pretty decently. Interesting. Man, maybe I just got super lucky with this Fiat. I don't know. Or maybe I haven't had it long enough. It's been about 10 months. No, about 9 months now. Yeah, not that long. But so we'll see. I guess I got plenty of time to have it still annoy me and make me lots of profitable content. We'll see what happens. But it's always a toss up. Like, do I want it to give me a bunch of crap and profit off of that, or do I want to just not have the stress and have a good car? As a YouTuber, that's not a clear choice all the time. Let me see. So Etch says, don't get it twisted though. It is this pony Dodge 7 days a week and twice on Sundays for the Mustang. I'm glad you still are loving yours. And Michelle's curious about the lyric complaints. Yeah, and it's also not the typical like BS YouTuber complaints, because I know like that's very easy. A lot of people are, oh, like I don't like the color anymore, or whatever stupid stuff people do just to come up with like a BS list of 5 things. We actually have, I think, 6 things, which isn't, again, falling into that mold very well either. But yeah, like I mean, yeah, I won't spoil the video. We still like the lyric. It's not like we're getting rid of the lyric or we like are mad at it or anything. It's still a fantastic car, but they're kind of funny things. And yeah, I'm gonna wait until I know where I sit on a few of the things before I go off about it. But and again, I'm not even really mad about any of the stuff with the lyric. It's kind of just funny stuff, and it's also one of the luxuries of leasing something, because like especially this lyric, it's a 24-month lease. We're already 6 months into it pretty much, so like we have like a year and a half left with it. So even if it drives us crazy, like it's not like it's that long of a lease. Like we just walk away from it and whatever. But we do still really like it. But this one in particular might not have been. We might have gotten a Friday car, I guess, is the little teaser. But we might have gotten a Friday car with a lyric. For anyone who's old school and kind of knows what that means. But yeah, we'll see again how everything shakes out. But anyway, so. Kraken says, speaking of which, my mom got a supplemental bill for the Jeep. That little Corolla hit the Jeep so hard it bent her drive shaft. I'm floored. Wow. And that's why it's good to get things checked out, because you don't want to sign off on a insurance release and be like, oh, I'm fine or whatever. Like you always want to like get things checked out extensively, because you never know weird little things that can really get screwed up and have a domino effect too. Let me see. Danny says the 26 Grand Cherokee has the new engine option, the 2-liter Hurricane inline 4. Yeah, which is a beast of a motor. Yeah, 324 horsepower, 332 pound-feet of torque. That was another one I considered covering that motor, but I knew it was just going to have a bunch of eye rollers and people that just, oh, it's going to blow up anyway. Ha, and I was like, I'm not going to deal with it. But yeah, paired to an 8-speed auto, still have the V6 and the 4x8 as options. Yeah. But yeah, that motor sounds like it's going to be a little beast. And that's the kind of motor, if they want to come back, I desperately want them to put that engine in like a new SRT4 something. Obviously, we have no sedans to pick from, but even like that, if they don't want to come back with Pentastar for Charger, I think that like putting that little Hurricane 4-liter or 4-cylinder in the Charger would be a great base motor for Charger. Again, I know I can already imagine the avalanche of hate, for a 4-cylinder in a Charger, but I wouldn't put it past Dodge. And again, if it makes 324 horsepower, it's still an upgrade from the old Pentastar V6 and the last ones that everyone didn't seem to hate. But if I were a betting man, I think that's going to go in the Charger at some point, just to bring the price down. Because I think they still have work to do to get down to a cheaper mainstream Charger price point if they want to sell in the volumes they did whenever Charger was mainstream back in the day. And Colby, thanks for stopping by. He says, Matt, do you ever talk with Saab Kyle? Have you guys ever thought of trying to strategize together? You're similar. You both strive for real, honest, informative reviews. It's been a long time since I chatted with him. Kyle, he actually, when was it? Maybe at this point, because time is going so fast, so I'm starting to overestimate time periods whenever I talk about things, because I'm usually underestimating most of the time whenever I actually go back and check myself. It was probably at least 3 years ago now, where I think he sent me either a big long book or he just kind of called me out of the blue and just chatted. And I think it was a phone call, and he was just, we were both kind of struggling with, just the algorithm changes, just like the fact that like neither of us could get views to save our lives. And I told him, I'm like, hey, anytime you give me a call, like, look, you know, very few people really understand fully, especially to the point of like, this is providing for our families and like we need this, to survive, kind of thing. I was like, feel free to give me a call anytime, like always happy to chat. And I mean, he's a super nice guy. But yeah, the last time I saw him in person, I think was actually the Dodge Challenger. I think it was the Red Eye launch. Yeah, I think it was the one we were on together. Yeah, had a great time hanging out, having dinner with him and everything else. Yeah, he's super nice. I think the thing though, with Kyle, I mean, again, I don't know. I still subscribe to him. I still see the stuff that he posts, as far as, just seeing what has been posted. I don't have time to watch him, unfortunately, but I think he's got other things going on. He's kind of got this other side business with the shop and restoring stuff. And, I don't think that the views really matter too much to him anymore. I think it's kind of more of a fun thing. I mean, also, his wife, I think, is a pharmacist, and, gives them some nice stability there as well, versus, with me, it's, Beth's a stay-at-home mom. So like everything's on my shoulders. So I think Kyle's got a little more breathing room than I do too. So he's probably not as stressed about the views as I am. But yeah, I hope he, is doing well. But I think, I don't know, again, I haven't talked to him in a few years, but I think, seems like he's, happy to get back into the reviews here and do that a little bit more, get back into having the press cars and everything. But I'm sure he's probably not as stressed, because again, he's got these other things, which is very smart of him to do. Even the fact I saw he's got his little gaming setup where he, plays, Need for Speed Underground and stuff like that, and just has some fun, which I'm so happy for him that he's in that position. But like me, like, I'm working until midnight or 1 a.m. every night, and I'm, always working on the next video. Like, the idea of free time is a hilarious idea for me right now. So we're in very different places, even though, again, we are both kind of in the same YouTube struggle. I don't think he's worried about it as much, so I think that's probably why he hasn't, tried to chat more about it, in recent times here. But I hope he's doing great. I wish him nothing but the best. And yeah, great guy, having spent, many times now hanging out with him in the past. Yeah, he's very, very much the real deal, and exactly what you see on camera. He's a super nice guy, and yeah, highly support him. And I mean, and I feel for him, because, he was another one of those, titans of automotive YouTube. And now it's just, a distant memory for most people, even though he's still, like me, does the same stuff, still has a passion for it, still enjoys doing it, but just most people have moved on. But let me see here. Kraken says she had to give back the Equinox and now has a Trailblazer. That little Trailblazer is surprisingly fast. When I told my mom it was a 3-cylinder, she went, "It's a 3-cylinder?" Yeah, I mean, those 3-cylinders, it's no joke. I mean, there's some strong 3-cylinders. I mean, look at GR Corolla. All right, you got your mention in there. You guys can go ahead and have your first drink of the night. GR Corolla, awesome 3-cylinder. And a ton of fun. So you can make an awesome 3-cylinder if you want. There's some other ones in Europe, like Fiesta ST, before it went away, had the 3-cylinder. So yeah. And Nintendo Atari Killer is asking how the new airport is. Pittsburgh, yeah, we got a new airport terminal here. Unfortunately, I have not checked it out yet, because, of course, I did like 5 trips this fall, and the last one was the week before the new airport opened. So I have not been in it. And my next press trip is actually not until the middle of January. So there was usually like November and December are super busy for me. And there's some stuff I'm seeing other people going on a few things, but it seems like even for everybody, it's a little slower this year for some reason. But yeah, for me, like, this is the first time since probably 2018, maybe even 2017, that I have like been home for the entire month of November and December. pretty much. So yeah, haven't checked it out yet, but I'll let you know in the middle of January when I go through, unless there's some other surprise trip that comes up in the meantime. But yeah, and also Jordan, thank you so much for the super chat. He says, Matt, it would be cute and heartwarming if you and Beth help your daughter hot glue together an ugly Christmas sweater for a last live. Hot glue would be interesting to use for a sweater. I guess I couldn't really wash it too much, but putting something like that together would be fun. And yeah, that's the other thing. It'd be fun to do more family content and make it more personal in that way. But again, we're still just kind of, you can keep your family, their identities and stuff without, because like we don't like really showing our daughter, on camera or anything like that. But that's one thing that would be fun, because she is so much fun. And I mean, it'd be YouTube gold, if we filmed, some of the funny moments and stuff, but just we don't want to do that, unfortunately. So that's the kind of the limit there, but it would be fun to show. And maybe in the future, we can do stuff where her face isn't shown and things like that. But for us, I know for others, they like doing the family stuff, and it works very well for them, and I'm sure it would for us too. It's just everyone draws their lines differently, and for us, that's just we don't want to put her online until she is choosing to do that and is old enough to actually be consenting to that, and so that's just the way we're playing it. But yeah, someday maybe. I mean, if we're still here in another 14 13 years, whatever, maybe sooner, we'll see. I don't know, but it's at some point I'll stop doing this channel, even if I am able to keep doing it as long as I want. Maybe someday she'll take over if she wants. I don't know, we'll see. But yeah, I appreciate the suggestion there, Jordan. And yeah, we'll see if we can get a fun Christmas sweater put together or something. And let me see here. All right, so we have 20 more minutes left. I think, let me see. Yeah, we're kind of behind. I think I'm going to now swap to just member-only questions. Feel free, if you're a non-member, to ask again if we get to the end there. Absolutely, if we can reach the end here before the 2-hour mark. But I am going to try and hold to the 2-hour mark here tonight. I know it's unlike me, but I do have other work I got to do after I get off of here, unfortunately, even though it's very late. So we're going to end right at 11 Eastern time here. So I'm going to go to member-only questions here, and we'll go from there. But let me see. So Jordan says, here in Milton, Florida, Florida Power and Light actually just installed 2 EV chargers in a small town shopping center. Take progress where we can get it. Yeah, that's great. I mean, especially because it's expensive, especially without the subsidizing, of the government. It's a big investment up front. So that's awesome to see. I mean, some of those funds have already been appropriated, especially like Florida is a state where probably not going to make a priority out of that, for the next few years here. So that's great to see. Congrats. And hopefully that, opens up more people to EV ownership in your area. That's great. And Thera Fester, thanks so much for stopping by. Says, hey, Matt, I'm happy to join after so long. And it says I'm in their top 5 as well for most watched channels this year. Well, thank you so much for that. I appreciate that. And by the way, if any of you guys want a shout out, if you're on Instagram or whatever, if you want to tag me in a story of that or whatever, I'll definitely repost it or whatever. I saw a lot of other, YouTubers doing that here in the past few days. So send them over if you want. Always happy to give you a little shout out and thanks for being in your top 5, because I do very much appreciate that. And Nicholas says, hey, Matt, my Toyota dealer quoted me $1,500 for front brake pads for my Brembo brakes for the performance package. Definitely looking at aftermarket instead. $1,500 for brake pads? Yeah. So I'm going to be roasting a dealer to go along with the manufacturer stuff that I'll be talking about here with this one video this week. Thankfully, like with the Lyric, like our dealer so far is great. So it won't be them. I'm happy that they're still good, but yeah, man, dealers, especially the service departments, man, like they are so egregious with the way they try and rip people off. Like, I thought that maybe this stuff was getting kind of better. I was like, surely, like, come on, with the internet and stuff, like, word spreads fast and you don't want to burn your bridges and stuff. But like, nope, like there's still some vultures in the service space. And it's like, how do you guys sleep at night? Like, I guess on a bet of money, but like, I mean, they're service writers. Like, they're just making the dealer owner richer. Like, you're not, it's like, why are you doing this stuff? Like, man, I don't know. But like, yeah, that's ridiculous. Obviously, I hope you find some good aftermarket pads there for the performance package. Oh man, that's ridiculous. Actually, if you want, I don't know if he's actually made a video about it or not, but my buddy Rev Match TV, he does the SoCal G86 Cup. Like, he doesn't drive the actual Cup car, but they have like the non-Cup car G86 like class racing that he does, and he burns through a lot of brakes. And I can't remember what pad. I mean, his obviously he has a different pad for track duty, but I believe he's got a street pad that he likes as well. If just, yeah, little shout out to him. But like, if you go on Rev Match TV, he might have a recommendation because he's also got, performance pack G86. If he doesn't have a video about it, even if you're on Instagram or something, send him a message. I'm sure he wouldn't mind sharing, because again, if anyone knows a good solid brake, option, again, he's gone through more than probably most people on those cars. So I'm sure he's got some good insight there that, that I can't unfortunately provide for you, but I'm sure you'll figure it out on your own too, Nicholas. But if you want more advice, I'll send you that direction. And Dave says, I heard they will be lowering the price of the Hemi Durango for 2026. Sorry. Could be a good option for me since I moved to a rural area. Nice. Well, yeah, and I mean, they're also bringing back the V6, it sounds like, for the Durango as well. And so, yeah, all good to, again, print money with those things. Durango is very old, but people still love them. It has some staying power, and it's really turned into a forerunner kind of situation, I think, with Durango. And it's great for Dodge, great for profits. And again, great for consumers because they really like it still. So, yeah. I've been asking Dodge to get back into another Durango here for a press car because it's been a while. And every time I get a Durango press car, it's a Hellcat, which I'm not complaining about that. But like, again, I'm trying to do videos that are helpful to more than the handful of people who buy the Hellcat version. And so I'm hoping to get back into another Durango here at some point and, say, hey, it's basically the same, but here's what it's like through the lens of, 2025, 2026, whatever. Yeah, let me know if you decide to go for one, Dave. And Lance Foss says, I love these Sunday night live streams of yours, Matt. I'm glad you enjoy them and appreciate them. Thank you so much for tuning in. I appreciate every one of you that join in. And let me see. Luke says Ford Fusion should be a hybrid only or hybrid only Sportback. Yeah, Sportback, I think for any sedan or coupe is the way to go, just to compete with that SUV buyer. To really make them doubt their need for an SUV, make everything lift back. There's no reason you really can't. Even some of these ones with a more traditional trunk lid kind of thing, like the Audi A5, for example, like it looks like it doesn't really have the Sportback thing, but it does, and I mean, there's no reason to not have that, honestly. So yeah, I'm hoping that more and more companies do that. And we see Theodore says, cars are not boring. People are boring. I love cars. You're the best of the best. I appreciate that, Theodore. Thanks so much. And thanks, Theodore. I also saw your comments throughout the past week here, going back and watching some of the other member videos now that you're a member there. And thank you so much for your support, by the way, as well. But hopefully you're enjoying all those videos. And he even watched one of the acceleration reactions I saw he commented on for the 300,000 subscriber special that I did way back when. The acceleration compilation, which is a fun one. So I'm glad you enjoyed that. And little other quick teaser. I'm hoping, depending on how my free time is, I'm hoping to have a little, I guess, Christmas gift in a way. It's not like an actual gift or anything, but a little fun thing that I'm putting together for, it's not an acceleration reaction compilation, but I'm going to try and do a little thing that I think will be appreciated once I announce what it is here. So stay tuned. I'm going to hopefully have that done around Christmas time, of just a little fun thing that makes it easier to just enjoy some of the old highlights of the past. So stay tuned for that. But anyway, appreciate the hearts for that. But let me see here. So also, So Scott says, just a clarification, there are still rules, but the crazy mandate of the 50 MPG plus in a few years average was taken away, and it's now mid-30s MPG, so it's still a target needing to be hit. If you're maybe referring to the California stuff, which is they're trying to get it thrown out, but I'm pretty sure they dropped all cafe fines. So there's a rule on the books, but if there's no fines, then you don't have to hit the rules. So I don't think that's. I mean, I guess technically yes, there's a rule there, but if there's no fine, then no one's going to follow it. So it's the same as not having a rule at all, and that's why I've continued to say it's a free for all, because it is. If there's no fines, there's no repercussions, there's no penalties for that, then there's no rules. Obviously, it's like, oh, well, don't speed, but if they never catch you for speeding, then there's no rule there. If they don't enforce those rules, it's irrelevant. So I'm pretty sure that's the way I've understood it, and the way most of my colleagues have approached it, is that's the way things are going. That's why Dodge felt comfortable to bring back the V8 or Ram, and probably Dodge too, but Ram with the V8 and all that. And this is why Tesla's in serious trouble, because they can't sell CAFE credits anymore. So yeah, I'm pretty sure that's the way it works, as far as I know. But let me see here. And Jordan says, thanks, Matt. I didn't mean you shouldn't talk about your channel. My 2028 car news and interesting reveals question was strictly about once we get to the 2028 car companies can finally reach true trajectory. Yeah, I think that the bottom line is they're still just going to keep doing what they were planning on doing, and realize that these next few years are an outlier, that we can't have a free for all forever. We won't have a free for all forever. And there will be rules that are enforced again at some point, and they don't want to be caught, with their pants down, for lack of a better term, once that actually gets switched. So I think that's, why they're just, okay, cool. Maybe we'll, open up a few extra things, but it's not going to be a giant, strategy shift. And Crittenden, thanks so much for stopping by. It says, greetings. The internet says Ford is going to kill the Lightning due to $44,000 losses on each one. Yeah, there was rumors of that, but then also there was rumors just recently of a next generation Lightning as well. And we do know Ford is working on this new EV truck that they continue to tease, and they continue to talk about this new production method for it and all this stuff. So I don't know if that's actually going to happen with it being discontinued. I mean, I think it could go either way, but my bet is that they're going to stick with it. And the thing, I've been seeing that number a lot recently, also in the past week, because of all the, Trump stuff and everything. The losses that people really like to point to, the losses that are happening right now. And all you have to do is look back to the Tesla story. And I mean, and this is why a lot of people thought Tesla was not going to make it. If you look at, I mean, I guess at this point, it's probably been, 5 years that Tesla's been profitable or something like that. But Tesla was unprofitable for years and years and years. They had a huge burn rate. They were blowing through billions of dollars. And, people are like, are they going to ever see the upside here? Are they ever going to be profitable? And I remember back in the day talking in weekly updates, well, Tesla, they're doing their thing, but they're burning all this money. And how long can you afford to burn money before you reach the other side? But Elon and Tesla, to their credit, again, I give them little bits of credit where it's due. They had the faith that, this will get profitable someday. And I think they were the pioneer for that, as far as showing how this stuff works. All of these EVs, there's a massive investment up front. You lose money on every truck, absolutely huge amounts on every one of these EVs initially. But that goes for any platform, any new platform, any new generation. You start off with a loss, and then little by little, you make it back, and things get more and more profitable as you improve the tech and stuff. And it was the same with Tesla. And eventually Tesla got to the point where they were profitable. And now look at them. They're hugely profitable, probably less going forward, thanks to Elon's antics. And again, the loss of the cafe sales, because they make a huge amount of money on the cafe credits. That's part of the only reason why they made it, I think, to profitability all those years ago, was because of their ability to sell that stuff, which is why, I think Elon is not happy about, about that going away still. And that's probably part of, why that falling out happened. But regardless, the bottom line is, and I think Ford understands this, but like everyone has forgotten the Tesla story, that giant success story that it was. And it started with burning billions of dollars until you got to that profitability. It's the same with Lightning. It's the same with any of this stuff. You start off with a big money loser. None of these EVs are going to be profitable. It's new tech, it's expensive stuff, and you can't charge people what it actually costs. But you lay the framework, you get things in place, you get the numbers out there, you get the volume out, you get people hooked on it that say, okay, well, this is great. I want to keep going with this, and you grow that. And again, it might take you 10 years, but Tesla, however long it took them, got to the other side. And everyone else it's a predictable curve. You put the money in, it's a huge amount of money. You cut back for a few years. This is why we saw, every car company is following the same thing. And they understand this will eventually get to a point where we reach cost parity with gas, costs come down, all this kind of stuff. And then you'll get there, So, yeah. So it's a very easy thing to make. Look, they're losing a bunch of money, and everyone, at first glance says, oh yeah, duh, let's dump them. But like, if you did that for every product, you'd never have half the cool crap we have or any of the pioneering stuff. Innovation costs money. Innovation is expensive. It's a gamble. A lot of times it doesn't pay off, or not for a long time. But like, that's the cost of innovation. It costs money. The cheap, easy, safe thing to do is build the same old stuff, stick with the same old stuff, and don't ever innovate. That's always the cheaper way, and that's always the best way for shareholders. And this is why, if we don't have regulations to push the ball forward and move the goalposts, car companies are always going to just say, oh, let's just stay in the stuff we have. It's already paid off. It's already engineered. Let's not go further. Why do we need to? Everyone's happy. Everyone complains about change anyway. So why change? Why improve? And that's why I think regulations are very important. But anyway, now we're almost out of time here. So I want to, I did start a few minutes late. So I think even though we got like 2 minutes till 11, looks like I'm about 4 minutes till we're done on the 2-hour mark here for the live. So I'm going to try and lightning round here. Now, Theodore says, when is Beth coming back? You two have amazing vibes. So good to see you two smile. She'll probably stop by for a live here at some point soon. Maybe we'll even do that for a Christmas special or something in that week or something. We'll see what happens, but hopefully she can come back soon. And Fairfester says Prelude is correct, but pricing is absurd. Should have been priced. Yeah, mid to high 30s. Totally agree. And let me see. All right. So Nintendo Atari says Ford wanted to do a 4-door rear-wheel drive sedan like the Ford Falcon. And I hope they still do that Mustang thing at some point. And it also says they could put a sedan on a truck frame and make a super crazy fast off-road sedan. Yeah, I think that would actually work, and I think that could be really fun. We'll see if they're that bold or not. He also says the F450 Raptor dually with matching trailer. Yavinder says, with Nissan now being up to date, do you think people will still boycott due to its past years? I mean, you'll always have people that drag their feet the same way, I still, every time I post a Hyundai or a Kia video, sooner or later, some person who's still stuck in the 1980s says, oh, they're terrible. They all fall apart, blah, 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 blah. Some of that stuff, once you make an impression on someone, some people write that brand off forever, and there's no saving them. There's no convincing them. Some people are just closed-minded like that. But for the people who aren't, who understand that, hey, maybe the CVT that was crap 15 years ago isn't maybe the same CVT they're using anymore. Perhaps, obviously, it's been, long ancient history, but, some people who at least have that ability to have that amount of thinking outside of the box can realize, hey, these are new products. Let me give it a new try. And they'll come in and see how impressive they are. And I think that, you will get a lot of people that say, okay, well, the Nissans before were crap. Now they're good. But I think it's going to also fall on Nissan's shoulders to really put the marketing money behind it, get people into showrooms, and really, put out a lot of effort to really tell that story of, hey, we're not the same Nissan we were a while back, and here's the new stuff, here's the new direction, here's the new CEO, all of this stuff. They got a lot to pull from, and if they package it properly, I think they can make a dent, in the right way. But I do think, yeah, they have a bright future for sure. And Dave says, didn't Chrysler just try small luxury with the Hornet? That was a disaster. I mean, Hornet was Dodge, and Hornet was just weird anyway, because it was just an Alfa Romeo Tonale. Alfa was pissed that Dodge took it. There's a whole bunch of drama behind the scenes about that, it seems. And it was just kind of a half-baked thing. That should have only stayed an Alfa and never been a Dodge. But Chrysler, wants to try something, but I think they're going to go for a sedan. My guess is going to be a modern take on the 200, kind of. But we'll see. Anyway, let me see. So, where are we here? So Theodore says you're 100% right. It's about showing off as far as the high-end trucks. Yeah. Chad says bring the Jimny. I mean, if we are going to have K cars in this, potential K car world, Jimny is one I will certainly be happy to see if it ever does show up here. And Crittenden says the culture here is independence, and that's why people want to self-sustain and own vehicles that are overkill. Right. Absolutely. And Chad says it's not independence if it's bank owned, which is true. Yeah. But let me see. Trading for Science says if you could pick 5 cars on your driveway, price range between 40 to 60, what would you pick? If they're all between 40 and 60, so there'd be a Supra there, there'd be a GR Corolla there. There'd be, I guess if we're just, it'd be those. GR86 would probably be one. I'd have a Miata. And I'd probably have another Mustang. I'd buy my Bullet back if I was shopping in that price range. Those are probably the top 5, honestly. Might be one or two others I'd swap in if I think a little bit more about it, but I'm pretty sure that's about where I'd land. Dave says, I thought the GR-GT was going to be a full production competitor to the AMG GT. Yeah, pretty much, I think, although that's all-wheel drive now, right? So a little bit different, but yeah, similar kind of thing. And also Trading for Science asks, if you could build a car, how would you build it? I think, the Slate is kind of, I would do a Slate, but I would do it as a car, a sedan and a coupe. But that's always what I've said I've wanted to do is, stick to a bare bones car and do the affordable thing. Kind of in the same vein that they're trying with this K car stuff that's not going to go anywhere. Is just, there is a real affordability problem. And I think if you can do that in a way where you can make a safe car that actually has appeal for Americans and is big enough and is fast enough and is safe enough, not like K cars, and something, this just goes cheap on the luxuries. That would be what I would like to try. But as we've seen, again, customers don't want to, give any concessions up. They want to have their cake and eat it too, and, figure out the payment later, I suppose. So that's, but I think I would do something like a sedan version of Slate pretty much. Let me see. Jordan says, we have a cat. Any vehicle cat travels in your history as a cat owner? Any oddities in the home? Plenty of oddities in the home. That would take far too long to go through all those, because cats are odd creatures in my opinion. But as far as cat travels, no. We, aside from the couple of times we took them to the vet in the car, they're never in the car. So no travels with them, honestly. They don't travel very well because they just never do it. Dave says, if GM can screw up the LSV8, then Pentastar could have problems too. The manufacturers usually blame it on suppliers, but that won't help customer impressions of the vehicles. Yeah, but truly it is supplier stuff that usually drops the ball, which sucks that the manufacturer has to, cover for that. But that's why it's super important to pick good suppliers. And Trading for Science says YouTube pays good for just a Friday car. You're right. Yeah. No. We were saving a bunch of money on the Lyric over the Mach-E. We got a really good deal on the Lyric, thankfully. He also is asking, what do you think of the Ineos Grenadier? They seem cool in a way. It's personally not a vehicle I'd love. I'd just rather have a Defender if I'm going to go for something like that, because I don't like something as crude as the Grenadier. But for the real actual hardcore people, I think it's a cool option. I'm glad it exists, but not something that I'm certainly lusting after or anything. Let me see. So Chad says, you and Sarah and Tune are in my top 5 for YouTube. The others were for a science channel, a travel, and a history channel. That's awesome. Well, got a nice balance there, and I'm honored to be in your top 5 too, Chad. And Jordan says recent movies feature dummy cars without emblems, Chevy, Honda, Pontiac. When will we see a film that promotes actually new vehicles, production or concept vehicles, and why the facade? Well, the facade, the fake vehicles is just due to them not wanting to pay licensing fees or not having the promotional rights, things like that. As far as the new vehicles, I mean, there are collaborations for sure. Like for example, we watched a Freakier Friday this summer, and that they like Genesis had collaborations. Like they were driving a GV60, the dad had a GV80. So I'm seeing some of those, and maybe some people don't realize it's paid promotional, which is such BS because on YouTube you have to like broadcast like this is a paid thing, watch out. But like whenever it's a movie that you don't even know it's a paid placement, and maybe if you stick to the end of the credits or something, but like it's such a double standard. But anyway, there are some of those. It's just a lot of them are more subtle these days and not so overt because people get turned off by the more obvious, blatant stuff. So it's just subtle, but it's, it makes an impression. And I mean, like in Freakier Friday, it's like, oh wow, well, like, she's a psychologist and she drives a Genesis. This is, and it kind of just, it's a subliminal thing in a way of like, oh wow, that's a nice car. I wonder what that is. And people go home and check it out after or something possibly, But so I think there still is some of that, just maybe not as much as there was, with like sci-fi films back in the day having these crazy things like, Lexus and BMW and others did. And Jordan says, I remember Fast and Furious hinted at the EV charger. Right. Yeah, they showed that right at the end there. That was cool for sure. But I believe that was after it had already been revealed, if I remember correctly. But Jordan also says, Matt, me and Chad are going to email companies on your behalf as fans within a professional way to get you out out of the box reviews. I appreciate that. Let me know how it goes. Yeah, I mean, I'm very much open to out of the box stuff and trying to switch it up here going forward. But for a lot of these companies, they know who they want to be in their cars. They're all aware of me. And I mean, again, because of the views and all that, there's good reasons why I'm not, a list for everybody, and that's okay. And I'm content with that. I'm honestly, I'm fine staying at home. I'm fine, doing these other topical videos. It's honest. I'd rather sit here and just rant if it pays all the same, instead of going out and filming reviews on cars that maybe I'm, not super excited about or whatever. Like if I can just, hang out and chat on a live or chat in a rant or whatever. I'm more than happy just to chill in my office here and never leave the house. But I appreciate that. And yeah, definitely keep me in the loop on that. And that's so kind of you guys to go to the trouble. Definitely don't spend too much time on it or anything. But if you're bored and you want to kill some time, I'm sure it can't hurt. And he also says, yeah, thanks for the lives and the spontaneous rant shorts. I'm glad you enjoy them. Thanks so much for hanging out here. And thank you, Jordan, for the super chat. And I saw you. Sorry, I got a fuzz flying here. You're attracted to the message, but hopefully I answered all the questions here. I see the other super chat from you, Jordan. Thank you so much for that. He says, past Kia cars cost low, and now they're built to higher price points. I think Chrysler Futures has to cater to the same. Yeah. I think, that's why we'll see how low they go and what they're actually talking about with this, more affordable model. But hopefully it's something that, does bring people into the showroom again for Chrysler. And Chad also says, thanks for the lives. And I'm not here for every one of them due to work, but I love when we can watch together. Well, thanks so much. I'm glad you're able to make this one. And I get it, though. Yeah, the work life, it takes priority. So I totally get it. And Jordan says that Slate had an automated reply there. And so thank you for that update, Jordan. And thanks again for that. And Mr. 75 says you came up in my YouTube top 5 as well. Well, that's awesome. Thank you so much. And Trading for Science here will end us out. He says you should make a second channel and make it a Top Gear style. I would love to. It's just really hard. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of production value and all that stuff. It's a lot to do. I do have a second channel though for anyone who might have missed in the past when I was talking about this, but I have a junkyard channel called Relics of the Rust Belt that I just started doing back in the fall here or late summer. And I just walk through junkyards. And so for people who are burned out about new cars, used cars, car prices, car whatever, let's go and walk through the nostalgia of stuff that's waiting for the crusher. And it's been really fun to do those. I'll have a new one come out here the next day or two. And that's something I'm really hoping I can keep expanding and growing, because it's been a lot of fun, and I think people have really enjoyed it. And the views seem to be, pretty respectable too for a pretty new thing. So I'm hoping that that's another nice thing to help improve the channel and all that, and just my fortunes on YouTube here for the future. But let me see. And Jordan, I appreciate says I'm very real. I'm always honest and real. And I'm glad you enjoy that, Jordan. And Joey didn't know about the second channel either. Yeah. So I just did a couple what do they call it? Community posts. One when I made the channel, and another one, a month or so later afterwards. But Relics of the Rust Belt is what it's called. And so check it out if you're curious. It's fun just walking through junkyards, see all kinds of crazy stuff, hilarious mods, bizarre things, rare finds, all kinds of cool stuff. It's exceeded my expectations of what I ever imagined I'd find in those yards. It's been a lot of fun, and just keeps on coming. So definitely hope you guys enjoy those. Anyone who's just discovering that now. And thank you all so much for hanging out here tonight. Hope you all have a great week. Stay happy, healthy, and safe. And I'll see you guys on the next one. We'll be here on Wednesday for a 1 hour live. Take care.